Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Poet Speaks podcast. Our next guest is a queer mixed Mi'kmaq and settler, German, Irish, Scottish, multidisciplinary artist originally from Elmastukwek, Ktaqmkuk, Bay of Islands, Newfoundland, now residing in Toronto, Ontario. She's a two-time National Poetry Slam champion and recently published her chapbook titled Mixed Emotions. She was published in the issue 09 of Canthius magazine and Now magazine in 2021. They're currently working on a play titled Restoring Identity. It was presented at the first ever Nogojiwanong Indigenous Fringe Festival in 2021. Everyone, please welcome to the podcast, Jennifer Alicia. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me here on this podcast.
Absolutely. No, I was presented to your work through a friend of mine, and I was very amazed at what you were doing and really representing Canada. You know, you're the first Canadian we've ever had on the show. So
okay.
Yeah, I know our viewers would love to hear about Canada, the Indigenous peoples of Canada, and what the poetry scene is like out there. So that's kind of my first, what we're going to go into first here. Like, tell me about Canada, whether it be the location that you're at now, what part of Canada you're in, and tell us about the poetry scene out there that you grew up in.
So right now I'm living in Toronto, and Toronto actually has a really rich scene, a really rich spoken word and poetry slam scene, and just art scene in general. There's tons of spaces here in the city. There's a choice of like open mics to go to, and even different organizations that host poetry slams. There's the Toronto Poetry Project, which I'm actually an organizer of, that runs the Toronto Poetry Slam. There's other groups such as Hot Damn It's a Queer Slam and Rise, and like there's just so many different spaces here in Toronto alone. And then, I mean, I can't necessarily speak for every place in Canada, but there is the Canadian Festival Spoken Word, which is like the national poetry slam scene. So like different cities across the country would put together teams, and poets would try out, and then those teams would go to CFSW and then compete for the title. There's no like money or anything, but there's just like the bragging rights of winning a CFSW. Yeah. And then sometimes we even go down to the national, it used to be called the National Poetry Slam, NPS in the States. I'm not sure. I think it's called something else right now, but so yeah, there's pockets everywhere.
Pockets everywhere,
yeah,
all over. So I'm curious, did you now live in Toronto? Where did you grow up in Canada?
Yeah, so I grew up in Newfoundland.
Yeah,
I wasn't wearing this shirt because I was coming on the podcast. I always wear this shirt. This is always my background, which is Newfoundland. But yeah, I grew up in a small community of about 600 people called Cox's Cove.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no poetry slam scene there. Yeah, so that's where I grew up. And then my mom and I actually moved to Ontario when I was in grade 6, just because of opportunities. Like there's more job opportunities, educational opportunities, better healthcare up here than compared to where we were. So yeah, that's where I grew up, on these rocky beaches back here. And now I'm in the big city of Toronto.
Wow. So tell us, so up until 6th grade, so you were about like 11, 12 till you moved. So a good chunk of your childhood was in that small town in Newfoundland with only 600 people. That's pretty amazing. Tell us, what was that like? Only 600 folks. That's smaller than a class of 9th graders in a high school. I mean, yeah, that's a very small population.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't really date anybody because you're pretty much related to everyone. Like somewhere along the line, we're related. So, you know, but I mean, I do go back, like a lot of my family still lives there. And I do love it. Like, I'm sure lots of people have their versions of home. And
Yes.
so even though I live in Toronto, Newfoundland will always be my home. Like there's no better feeling than like planting my feet on the rocky beaches, and just, it was so wonderful growing up, like fishing, trapping, hunting, hunting moose, fishing cod, like all of that. I love it. And so I grew up doing all of that. I come from a family of generations who do that. So, a typical day would be going out in boat, catching some codfish, frying them up for dinner.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I grew up.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's but that's something, that's pretty amazing though. I mean, I'm sure that so much of that has affected who you are today in terms of just living like that versus now living in the big city. You see so many different perspectives. Speaking of different perspectives, I am so intrigued by how you write your bio. You say you're mixed, Mi'kmaq, and settler. So it's very obvious you have indigenous roots mixed with German, Irish, Scottish. Tell us about those two very different backgrounds that you're from.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a walking contradiction sometimes. But like I very much talk a lot about being mixed. That's why my chapbook is called Mixed Emotions, because on top of being like a moody Scorpio, I'm also, I have mixed emotions about those things, but like also being mixed. I have emotions about that. But yeah, it's definitely been it's been interesting navigating the world as a mixed person. Like my mom's mom is German and Scottish, and so like family reunions with that side of the family might be very different from other family gatherings. So like navigating those two different worlds has been interesting. It's been tough at times, but I'm thankful for existing. And yeah, I write a lot about my identity. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm kind of going now into your poetry, your writing journey. When did you come into poetry and spoken word? At what point was that for you? Was it in Newfoundland, or was it in when y'all moved out to Toronto, all those the other cities in Canada? Where did you find out that you were like, poetry, this is where I want to be?
Yeah. I think I came into writing the way that a lot of folks come into writing. Growing up in Newfoundland, I did experience a lot of trauma. It wasn't all bad, but there was, I did experience trauma, violence, abuse, alcoholism, like all of those things were very prevalent in my family and just in the community in general. And I was an only child. And so being a young person, not really understanding what was going on, being fearful, having anxiety, not having anyone to talk to. I used to write. And so the paper was, pretty much my therapy, my friend. And so I would just write about my feelings and what I was experiencing. And then I think just trying to process it all. And so that's really how I came into writing at first. And then the first poem that I have that exists still on paper is from when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
My pop passed away, and I wrote a poem about it because that's how I learned how to process my feelings, was on the paper. And so I still have that poem, which is really cool. So I know I've at least been writing poetry since then. And then, and so I continued writing when I came to Ontario with my mom, and it was literally mostly just for me, right? It was just for my own processing, feelings, all of those things. And then it wasn't until I went to university in Toronto that I learned about spoken word. I never knew about it before, did not really, yeah, it was like my first time being exposed to it. And so I had a friend at the time named Spin El Poeta. I mean, not at the time, he's still my friend, but Spin El Poeta, who's also a spoken word artist, great, amazing spoken word artist here in Toronto. He was big in the scene and he read some of my poetry and encouraged me to say it on the mic.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, that's weird. People want to hear what I'm feeling. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did it, and people did want to hear what I was feeling, which was really empowering to tell your story and then have people absorb it. And then sometimes even having people come up to you and relate, saying like, hey, I actually went through the same thing, or I experienced a similar thing, which is really powerful to be able to relate to one another. So yeah, ever since then, when I realized I had a platform and people were there to listen, I started going to more open mics all around the city, all the poetry slams. Like I even like started saying my poetry in activist scenes. So like at rallies or marches, you know, I'd be out there yelling my ragey poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it kind of just continued from there. And I didn't think it would take me anywhere. Not that I'm like, you know, a big movie star or celebrity or whatever, but like I didn't really think it would progress into much. But it did. And it's really something that's like an important part of my life. And I can't even imagine it not being a part of my life.
Yeah. I think that's the story of so many people. They're like, you know what, I started doing my poetry, like I didn't think it progressed into anything, but then like they have these amazing literary careers that they're just like, I can't believe I ever thought that I didn't want to do this. I think so many people have that same thing with their poetry and their writing. I'm curious for you, what because I know you are a indigenous person, if that is the correct terminology to use. What do you gain from that in terms of the oral traditions you draw from that indigenous identity into your poetry writing? You talked a little bit about your childhood experience, but are there any more kind of oral traditions from the indigenous identity that you have that you put into your poetry?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of I come from I guess lines of storytellers in a way, like my dad's family, and it's through my dad that I identify my Mi'kmaq ancestry. It's on my mom and a side as well, but it's mostly through my dad. But through my dad's family, there's poets, there's storytellers. I hear stories about ancestors who were here before, who I never met, but I hear stories about how they were able to just make up a poem on the spot, like freestyle, pretty much, like,
wow.
which is so cool. And so in a way, I feel like I'm carrying on those traditions through spoken word, because it is very much a traditional like art form. It is oral storytelling, and it is continuing that legacy and those traditions. And so I really do see spoken word fitting into that. And also, like, even when the way that I form my spoken word pieces, I'm not sure like if other people do that, but for me, I talk it out first instead of writing. Like, I don't know, like my process is not all the time, but mostly my process is to keep saying it out loud. Like I'll say a line and then I'll think of something that might sound good. And then I'm just like talking to myself out loud. And then sometimes I
Interesting.
record myself doing that as well.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of how sometimes I form my spoken word pieces instead of starting on the page. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question at all, but
no, absolutely.
okay.
I'm very curious still about the way in which you process your poems. So you speak them out loud. You're not a writer in terms of planning, let's say organizing a whole like stanza by stanza by stanza, or like free verse by free verse. You straight up just have a conversation with your words out loud.
Yeah.
Do you, so typically someone else is in the room with you, or just you talk to yourself? How does it go?
No, just talking to myself.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. I mean, there are times when I start on the page and, you know, it's going to sound horrible, but I'm not one to necessarily care about what my poem looks like on the page. I've cared a lot more recently about editing and like what it looks like, just in terms of like submitting to like call outs for submissions for various publications and stuff. Like that's when I'm kind of forced to care what it looks like. But in general, I don't really, I know it might, hopefully nobody takes this as disrespect, but like I personally don't necessarily care about that. So like when I
For sure.
say I start a poem verbally and then I even start typing it out, I won't care about what it looks like.
You know, that's such a thing, because you know, people in maybe certain writing spaces make a really big distinction between okay, like that on the page publication poetry versus spoken word. So it's very, I think it's very I think in a lot of ways very freeing that you're just saying, you know what, I don't care what it looks like on that page. You know what I mean? You're gonna feel my words regardless. I think that's very, very, very good stuff. Good stuff for me. So so let's talk a little bit about you know, your chapbook, Mixed Emotions. This is your first publication in terms of just your first time publishing your poetry, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us about I talked a little bit earlier about Mixed Emotions. Tell us about even going to the publishing process. Is this self-published? How did you get it into publication for print? And also just again, tell us about the origins of what Mixed Emotions is about.
Yeah. Well, I will say I've been practicing spoken word for a long time. I started when I was 19. I'm 35 now. There was a big break in between. I got in a really bad relationship for like 7 years. So during those 7 years, I didn't actually create any art. But once that was over and done, age 30, I'm back out there. And then I've just been like kind of growing ever since. But yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. But the idea of like putting my work on the page and having people own it scared me. Like also, it's just so scary to put your art out there. Because not everyone's gonna like it, and I understand that. Like not everyone's gonna like my poetry. You know, people might not resonate with it or relate, and I understand that. But just the anxiety of like something that's so personal and just putting it out there, it was just like no. So I never really wanted to publish. I thought about it a few times. I was like, this isn't really for me. You know, I have friends who, you know, publish their own chapbooks and sell them at their shows and make money, which is great. But that just wasn't, it was just too scary for me. And so I was never interested. But then I saw a call out from a new publishing company called Moon Jelly House. And the folks who were involved in it, one of them I'm familiar with from the national spoken word scene. And so I thought, you know, there's some good people who are starting this publishing company. They're publishing specifically BIPOC authors. And I thought, if I'm ever going to do this, maybe now's the time.
Yeah.
Just, just get it out there. And so I applied, and they were happy to publish my work. And so what I published was literally all of the poems that I've pretty much have had that weren't too personal.
Yeah.
And then I just put them all in the book and was like, okay, this is what it is. And so I'm so grateful that they published it, because I don't think I ever would have done that myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm so thankful that they did that, and now I have something to call my own. And so I called it Mixed Emotions, because mostly about my mixed identity, being having mixed ancestry, being Mi'kmaq and also settler, having mixed emotions about that, and just being like an emotional person. I can be like super emo sometimes. I blame it on being a Scorpio, like yeah. And just like complaining about the state of the world, all of those things, so many mixed emotions. And so, yeah, most of my poetry, I think I mentioned, does talk about, does come from me and my voice. And so a lot of it does talk about my identity, being an Indigenous person, being a mixed person, growing up where I grew up, and that sort of thing. And so it made sense. And then I was so happy to get Chief Ladybird, who's an amazing Indigenous artist here, to do the cover. And she just made it look so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it just all came together. And I'm so thankful that I did it, because like I said, I don't think I would ever publish my own. So yeah, now I have something out there.
No, and congratulations for that. Absolutely. I'm curious, I love how you said Chief Ladybird had designed your cover art. I love that, because it's more than anything, it's like when the two different worlds of art just emerge, it just puts a smile on your face. And just to see your cover just in full fleshed out, and it's like, oh my God, this is my book. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's such a good feeling. So congratulations for that. I want to talk about, so you're working on a play.
Yes.
So we went from poetry to playwright now. Please tell me how you got into that world of now playwriting. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was by accident, really. Yeah, where do I even start? It was kind of by accident. I went to a residency at the Banff Center for Arts in Banff, Alberta. I was in the Indigenous Spoken Word and Storytellers residency for 3 weeks. And I went there with a specific project in mind. I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go there. I'm going to work on this very specific thing. And then I got there, and all of that got pushed to the side. And there's something really magical about Banff. I don't know if it's the mountain energy. Like, I don't know what it is, but like something about that space did so much for me as a person. I literally felt myself getting unblocked there, which I know sounds weird, but there was like my body started to feel less tense, and like my mind started to feel more clear, and it was just such a freeing experience. But during that residency, this random memory popped into my brain. Like it wasn't something I was thinking about, like not anything it was not on my my conscious, like wasn't, and it was just like boop. I was like, what? But it was this memory that I remember someone telling me a story about a time that my pop saw a mermaid fishing, when he was out fishing.
Wow.
And so it was random. I'm like, why does this pop into my head? And so I started calling up my family, like recording our conversations, like, getting them to tell me stories and information.
Wow.
Talking to my dad, my aunties. And so from there, I don't even know. It was just like, I had this dream of like seeing this play on the stage. And it was the story of when my pop met a mermaid or mer person while he was fishing one day. And so from there, I started writing and developing the script. But yeah, from there, I just started writing and developing the script, and my imagination, just went wild. And so, yeah, started working on it and started taking it a little more seriously and applying for different opportunities and getting some support with writing it and stuff. So yeah, it wasn't in my plans at all. But I'm glad it happened. And I haven't finished writing it yet. So that's what I got to work on, but I am determined, and it will happen, that one day I'm going to see it on a stage.
Well, it's already been on the stage, right? Because it's been
on the stage. Yeah.
It's been presented at the first ever Indigenous Fringe Festival in this last year. So that's already a big accomplishment. How did that come to pass? Was it just because you had only finished part of it? How did they, so they just were like, yo, this is such good work. Let's just put out what you have now.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's what happened. I haven't finished writing, but I submitted what I have. I saw the call out and I thought, well, it's a Fringe festival, so it's also a really great place, I think, for something that's new and experimental. And so I threw it in and I got accepted. And so I did the one-person show, me acting out all the characters in the play. At the Fringe Festival, which was really cool. I'm not an actor, so I don't know how good it was for people who were there, but it was really cool experience for me. And eventually I want to see it on the stage with other people acting, and I can just sit back and just watch the good work happen.
Absolutely. And
I don't want to act in it in the future, but yeah, that was a really cool experience. So I'm grateful.
Absolutely. Sure. Congratulations. I'm sure. Yes, absolutely. That play will be all over, I'm sure, pretty soon. Pretty very amazing work. You had a dream, had a vision one day of your pop meeting a mermaid. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty really amazing, honestly. So congratulations on that. So as we're wrapping up, so many good things, Jennifer, that we've been able to just discuss about your amazing journey. I'm always curious, as a poet, what do you think people can take away from spoken word and poetry? What do you think people can take away from our art form?
That's a big question. I mean, people can take away your individual story. I think not for everyone, but for me, I think a lot of the times the pieces that I put out are more educational, to teach people about something, mostly about how messed up the colonial system of Canada is. So I hope that people can take away something from those stories. I think people should recognize that it takes a lot to actually get up on the stage and be vulnerable and tell your story in front of strangers. And so it's extremely brave and courageous to do that. So I hope people recognize that, and just how much you can do with your voice, with using your voice and telling your story, how empowering that can be. And how you actually can change the world with your voice. You can change people's minds, you can plant those seeds, you can do a lot. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
use your
Beautiful.
voice, and yeah.
Beautiful answer. So our last question. Why do you need to get your words out?
Mostly there's a lot of rage inside me, so like I feel like I need to get that out. But besides that, I feel like I have a lot to say. And I don't know, I feel like that's a good question. I don't know why I need to get my words out. I think it's selfish for some parts. Like it's selfish. I actually like want to get some of the feelings that I'm feeling out. So like in a therapeutic way, but also, you know, I think hopefully I say some things that make people think, and if it makes them uncomfortable even or angry, I'm okay with that, because that means you're thinking about it. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. So as we are wrapping up, please do tell us, Jennifer, what is the rest of 2022 looking like for you and your work, and also social media? Where can we find and purchase your chapbook and all your exciting projects coming up?
Yeah, right now I'm running creative writing workshops in the community here in Toronto. I've been working with a great organization called Two-Spirited People of the First Nations. So I've been running a workshop series with them. So hopefully a lot more workshops. Hopefully I'll finish writing my play. And yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to slowing down. I know we've been in a pandemic and things have been kind of slow, but I haven't stopped since the pandemic. Like I have a full-time job, but then on top of that, I do workshops and gigs and performances. And so I'm kind of looking forward to slowing down a bit this year. So I don't know. Well, I don't know what's going to happen this year for me. Hopefully more connections and meeting some great people like yourself. And yeah, you can find out more about my work on my website, jenniferalicia.com. And then I'm also on Instagram at East Coast Jam. I don't do Twitter because it gives me too much anxiety, and I don't really post much on Facebook, so don't find me there.
All right. Well, everybody, that sounds perfect. Jennifer Alicia's links will all be down in the YouTube video description of this podcast in the YouTube box below. So, oh my goodness, Jennifer, thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you for taking us all throughout your life, your career. This has been a really fun one. So thank you so much for being on the Poet Speaks podcast.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right. And everyone, like I said before, please check out all of Jennifer's amazing work. Everyone, please like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends. This is a podcast. All right, everyone, this is the Poet Speaks podcast, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.